Cheers to some hot tea. It's good. It's fresh basil, fresh lavender, fresh mint, all the freshness, straight out of a garden. Amazing. Especially for this kind of season. We've got a lot of sinuses, a lot of issues going around. There's a lot of chemicals being sprayed right now. Um, for mosquitoes, for those sort of things. I'm also going to make, on the flip side of the hot tea, I'm going to go ahead and make my nightcap. We got some lime, organic lime, some tart cherry juice. This is an herbal cough medicine that I made, and the rest of it's over there. I've got to go get it. I'll leave a little bit for whomever might need it. Let me go get the rest of it. Oh, come with me, Mike. Come with. I'll just settle down. So, the rest of it is this tincture that I made, but it's not really a tincture. It's a 7% tincture. So, it's a very low grade alcohol tincture. So yeah, and mixed with a lot of honey, so it's probably even less than 7% alcohol in that I just put in there. But that one has all sorts of stuff in it, and honestly, I didn't label it. I was in a rush to do it, so I have no idea what's in it, but I know it's got a lot of good stuff. So we'll just throw that up there. If you're on YouTube watching this, jump on to the school account. It's in the description. Get on there, join in on the herb talks on the school account. It's a lot of fun. We learn a lot of information, bounce a lot of great ideas off of each other. Yeah, we've got so many things going on right now. We have chemicals being sprayed for mosquitoes in particular. And I've noticed every time they spray for mosquitoes, all of a sudden all these respiratory issues start happening. And so we're dealing with a little bit of that right now. Thankfully moving through it, but got some stuff coming out right now. But we've got some hot tea and our nightcap. We're double fisting it tonight. So let me get this raffle started. Make sure I got everybody in here. All right. And then we're going to jump right in to rheumatoid arthritis. Now that we're going to bounce back and forth a little bit with this one. It's may or may not be long, depending on how long we want to make it. It can be extremely in depth. There are so many side streets we can take on this, but I would like to try and remain as concise as possible so people can understand what's going on. Because I've got multiple sources of different things that are really cool. But there's a couple of things that I would like to explain in this that we've never really dove deep into, which will be really cool. And it probably will bleed over into the next one as well. So we will become more and more familiar with all of these things, right? So, all right. I'm not tired or anything. We're going to make it through this just fine. So, starting off, let's talk a little bit about rheumatoid arthritis. All right, it's an autoimmune condition that primarily targets the synovial joints. Okay, the synovial membrane is what it targets, right? Which normally produces fluid to lubricate and protect the joints. Well, when it becomes inflamed and thickened over time, this inflammation can lead to cartilage breakdown, joint damage, and loss of function, right? So, from an immune perspective, this is where we can branch off, right? But from an immune perspective, rheumatoid arthritis is strongly associated with Th17. Now, Th17 dominance, right? And I think we've gone over Th17 a little bit, right? Th17 produces IL-17, interleukin 17, and so, but there's so much more to it than just Th17, or there can be, right? um, there can be, and so this leads to well, so I'm already getting off track. So, like I said, there's so many branches here. I've got another source of information right here. I'm gonna dabble between what we're doing. So, and some of them are studies, which I find really, really cool and interesting that I want to make sure that I mention. Um, so it's a little bit too narrow to say that it's just a Th17 dominance, right? There's many other things going on here. You have antibodies such as RF and anti-CCP, B cells that produce antibodies, T cells that coordinate immune responses, right? Macrophages and synovial fibroblasts, right? So, and then you got the TNF factors, the IL-6, IL-1, JAK, STAT, signaling, and other pathways. And so here's the thing is you have bone erosion and osteoclast activation. So you have building of tissues, breaking of down tissues, inflammation, all these different factors that play a role in RA, but they're not always playing a role. It's not like all of them are playing a role at once. It could be one or the other that are causing the main issues, right? And so specific things for this disease can affect different people differently, right? So someone could take turmeric and it could help a lot. Somebody could take turmeric and it not really help that much for this specific condition, right? And that's because there's other things that could contribute, right? And when you start looking at the studies and stuff like that, really, rheumatoid arthritis is just, although yes, it can be an autoimmune condition, it's really just an umbrella term um, for consistent joint inflammation, basically, right? And although, there's different factors and different things, there's no real like test to see specifically what is the dominant factor causing. And so it gets a little confusing, right? But there's a network of issues that tend to happen. Um, and it's stressed as an inflammatory network, basically, right? So sorry, it's not just T17 cells rise and IL-17 rises and joints become inflamed. That pathway can certainly participate, right? But human rheumatoid arthritis is usually more like a self-reinforcing network. And there's usually like there's um there's usually like uh loops that happen, right? Feedback loops that are happening, like especially with the macrophages, because they're called to certain areas, but they produce and stimulate all of those inflammatory factors, and which call more of them, and then they produce and stimulate inflammatory factors. So you can get this activated cell loop that happens with no off switch, right? So that tends to be the case in a lot of um, overactive immune systems. Is the braking switch for the immune system is cut off, right, or loosened a whole lot, right? And so that tends to produce problems. So I keep getting pieces of the. I got mint and lavender and stuff, and it keeps going in my mouth. Um, so it's really good. It's just not for when you want to talk, right? But so it's hard to address this, and so what we're going to do is we're going to address it from the autoimmune side, and then we'll bounce a little bit with the other contributing factors. I think that's what we're going to do. So from the immune perspective, right, rheumatoid arthritis is strongly associated with the Th17 dominance, right? Th17 cells produce inflammatory cytokines, particularly interleukin 17, which is what we were just talking about, which drives chronic inflammation within joints. This leads to the recruitment of additional immune cells, right? So increased production of inflammatory mediators and ongoing tissue damage. And then here's the thing: is that happens, right? So it increases the recruitment of these immune cells, macrophages and such, and macrophages start producing inflammatory compounds, right? So you can have a bunch of different issues happening that kind of creates a feedback loop, right? And calming the whole system down through environment, all these things, we'll get to this, but calming the whole system down is going to be key here and allowing everything to rest, recuperate, regenerate. There's some very fast ways to do that, and some very, softer, gentler ways of doing that, right? So, but the goal in addressing rheumatoid arthritis, right, is not simply to reduce the symptoms, but to influence the underlying mechanisms driving the condition, right? You can always um, treat the symptoms with different things, but the underlying issue still remains. So reducing joint inflammation is the primary focus, and this involves lowering the activity of inflammatory cytokines, which such as interleukin 6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha, both of which contribute to joint swelling, pain, and tissue breakdown. Turmeric is going to be really good for that, but that's not always just the issue, right? So you kind of have to have a strategy in order to really take care of something like this. And it's a strategy for everything, right? So especially autoimmune, any autoimmune disease, you're going to have to develop a good strategy approach. So protecting the cartilage also, right? So protecting the cartilage is also critical. Cartilage does not regenerate easily, right? So preserving its structure is essential. It's essential for maintaining your joint function. Now, you can regenerate it, but it doesn't regenerate easily. Okay, it takes time. Usually, scar tissue is involved, and when you do have an injury like that, there's ways to approach it, and we can talk about that. But let's first get the inflammation out the way, right? So, sorry, there's going to be a few pauses here. Let's see. Trying to keep the sinuses from all these crap going on at bay. So, modulating the Th17 activity is a key immune target, right? By reducing the overactivity of this pathway and supporting regulatory T cell function, it is possible to shift the immune system toward a more balanced state. So this helps the intensity of the autoimmune response within the joints. Preserving function involves maintaining mobility, reducing stiffness, supporting the surrounding muscles and connective tissue. This is extremely important. Gentle movement and proper nutrition and targeted support all contribute to maintaining that joint health, right? And so normally with rheumatoid arthritis or any arthritic condition, there's one spot that's usually attacked um, over and over and over in your body. You know, one spot that's usually has the issue. Yes, it can move, but a lot of times it's pretty relative to a similar spot, right? Um, so uh, building that joint tissue, but honestly, um, it's important to do that with all your joints, right? It's important to have movement in your daily life. It's painful to move, then don't stop moving. Just do it differently and work on stretching, work on that physical training to get yourself back to normal or close to normal movements. It's extremely important to have movement in your life. Without it, we're not designed to be stagnant, right? We're not designed to sit down all the time. And some people say, "Oh, I get out all the time." Well, you get out, but you get out in a car, right? Try walking to your next destination. No, you don't have to do that, but it's really important that you know that driving in a car is not moving, right? It's still sitting there. You go from sitting on the couch to sitting in the car to sitting at your next location or destination, right? So um, just because you got up and went somewhere doesn't mean you're actually moving, right? So excuse me, my nose is running right now. So like I said, we're dealing with a lot of stuff right now going on. So we got sinuses going on. We've got chemicals being sprayed on our land. I just got some dang signs to put out here to tell them not to spray. So I remember this happened in Pelham, where we used to live. They came by spraying all the houses. Like the houses are right, it's in a neighborhood, and they're spraying everybody's lawn, and we're 30, 40 feet from the road. As soon as that happened, everybody had respiratory issues for 2 weeks. And I didn't recognize it this time. I saw it. I saw it going on. I didn't think, oh, you know what? We should all start taking some zeolite, or we should all start taking some activated charcoal or some bentonite clay. And here we are. So don't mind me. I'm just getting a bunch of stuff out of my body. I'm allowing the natural processes of my body to work, just like everybody should. You shouldn't go running to a doctor every time you have a sniffle. You're going to be just fine. Okay. Um, no, some really cool stuff that we're going to get to here in a second. But so rheumatoid arthritis represents a combination of immune dysregulation, chronic inflammation, um, and tissue degradation, right? Addressing it effectively requires a multifaceted approach, right? It's not just herbs, but that calms the inflammation, regulates the immune pathways, and supports the structural integrity of the joints. Now, Th17 and IL-17 aren't the only things, right? B cells and autoantibodies are a thing, right? The best known RA associated antibodies are rheumatoid factor, RF, and anti-citrulline protein antibodies. Um, those are the anti-CCP, right? Commonly measured as anti-CCP. So these antibodies form immune complexes that interact with and complement and they interact with antibody receptors, right, on macrophages. And then you have the macrophages that produce all these different factors. T cells, other than classical Th17 cells, so Th1 like cells, you have T peripheral helper cells. Sorry, I'm looking at my other resource. And follicular helper T cells, right? So cytotoxic T cells, regulatory T cells, mixed transitional T cells. T cells can actually change what they do when they enter an inflammatory situation. Pretty crazy. Where do they derive this information from? I'll leave that up for question. But macrophages are one of the most important effector cells in established RA, right? So I've been talking a little bit about them. Once activated, the synovial macrophages can produce tumor necrosis factor, the IL-1, the interleukin 6, chemokines, enzymes, and growth factors, right? So they signals that activate fibroblasts and osteoclasts, right? So they can do everything. They're one of the main contributors to this whole problem. They also respond to immune complexes and damaged tissue and complement signals and messages from T cells, right? So this creates that loop. Macrophages are a part of that loop. So thyroid issues, you have mast cells that create this loop. Inflammatory issues elsewhere, in autoimmune situations, you have macrophages that create this loop, right? So in most every autoimmune situation, which we're about to go through a lot of them, you're going to have these feedback loops happening, right? And so it's important to know how to downgrade all that, how to regulate all that, right? Once you can stop that feedback loop, you can finally get some rest, some recuperation, some repair happening. And once you provide everything that your body needs and get all the irritants out, right? Especially the parasites now. And a lot of times parasites can be the major cause of these issues, right? The triggers initially for it. And they may be the ongoing problem. You know, if they're still there, there may be the ongoing problem. Once they're gone, maybe the problem goes away. Who knows? Just throwing that out there. But fact remains that you have to mitigate these things, break those cycles, those feedback loops that are happening in the body. So we'll go through a really quick definition of these things before we jump back into the IR. We've gone over a little bit of these, but I'm going to go over a quick definition again just to refresh people's memory. I don't think I've gone over all of these, and I have these. It's really cool. It's the different cytokines and the definitions of it. Then we'll go into herbs of the week. So, TNF. All right, TNF is tumor necrosis factor. TNF is a powerful inflammatory organizer. It activates blood vessels and the blood vessel lining cells, right? Macrophages. It also activates and fibroblasts, right? And promotes immune cell recruitment, right? So that's tumor necrosis factor. That's why. So all of those things, like we just talked about and went over, all those are contributing factors to RA, right? What TNF does, they are all contributing factors. What activates TNF? Do you know? I've said this before. What activates TNF, for the most part, is an imbalance in your omega fatty acids, right? When we get these crazy bad seed oils that have extremely high omega 6s, omega 9s, very low omega 3s, you get inflammatory responses. TNF is one of those inflammatory responses, right? So getting off those is a wonderful thing to do. IL-6, interleukin 6, contributes to both joint inflammation and whole body effects, such as CRP production, fatigue, anemia related processes, and systemic inflammatory symptoms. The IL-6 receptor uses the JAK enzymes and the STAT proteins, especially STAT3. I think we talked about that before. to transmit its message inside the cell. Okay, I've only got a few more of these. We'll be done with this. And then we have IL-1, interleukin-1, promotes inflammatory cartilage, inflammation, promotes inflammation, cartilage degrading enzymes, pain sensitivity, interactions with bone destructive pathways. Like TNF, its main signaling does not depend primarily on the JAK-STAT, which we'll get to here in a second. IL-17 strongly activates fibroblasts and can cooperate with TNF or IL-1. Two moderate signals together may sometimes produce a much larger response than either cytokine alone, right? So if it gets with TNF or IL-1, it can compound, basically, is what it's saying. So JAK-STAT, So JAK-STAT, JAK-STAT, is not a cytokine, right? It is more like wiring inside the cell. Different cytokines bind receptors on the cell surface. Those receptors activate combinations of JAK enzymes, which then activate STAT transcription factors. STAT proteins enter the nucleus and change which genes the cell expresses, right? So JAK inhibitors therefore interrupt several cytokine messages at once, depending on the particular dose and what it is. This may affect signaling from IL-6 family, interferons, GM, common gamma chain cytokines, other cytokines, right? So it can disrupt a lot. So that's really good. We're not going to go into all this, the myeloid stuff. We'll go into that when we specifically talk about the myeloid, which would be with MS, right? So we go to, I have another resource that I pulled up that's really cool, because we're about to get into the herbs, and then I'm going to talk about this a little bit. I love this. So, all right, y'all. Now, herbs of the week. Herbs for RA, right? Boswellia, one of my favorites. Boswellia serrata, boswellic acid, really great. Particularly due to its action with 5-lipoxygenase pathway, right? 5-LOX is what they call it. The 5-LOX enzyme, it reduces the productions of leukotrienes, which are key drivers of inflammation in joints. Now, it helps a lot with swelling and stiffness and pain, but it's all lesser on the side of the autoimmune side of the RA, right? So really great for the symptoms. One of the most effective herbs for RA and the symptoms, not so much for the cause, right? So we'll get to that. There's a lot of clinical studies that have shown reductions in RA pain, right, and improved joint function, right, with consistent use of it. Now, this one is very interesting. I've touted this one for autoimmune disease patients, for different autoimmune diseases, right? But you have to be careful with this one, okay? Because it can be, it's very, very potent and possibly toxic. And there's not really, it's kind of iffy on where that toxicity begins, right? And so it can be taken, it can be used under caution, right? You just want to monitor and see what's going on while you're doing it. So, Thunder God Vine is just a really cool name for an herb, I have to say. But I've been talking about it for a while for MS. I helped a lady that was very, very old that had MS with Thunder God Vine, and it worked wonders for her. Um, that wasn't the only thing we did. Now there's a lot of other things that we did, um, but this was a major contributing factor to her remission. Right. So Thunder God Vine is a potent immunomodulator herb, right? Used in traditional Chinese medicine. It has strong effects on immune signaling and can significantly suppress overactive immune responses. One second. It's all coming out tonight. All right. So, um, particularly, oh, sorry. Um, so immune responses, including those seen in rheumatoid arthritis, right? So it reduces cytokines such as TNF alpha and interleukin 6. So it works really well with turmeric in that form or fashion. But it can directly impact Th17 as well. But because of its strength and potential toxicity if misused, it should only be used under professional guidance and with standardized extracts. I agree that you should definitely, you can find it online. It's not a big deal. There's extracts of it, standardized extracts, and there's like 50 to 1 extracts and stuff like that. When it recommends what you take what is recommended for this herb. This is not one you can just take as much of as you like. It can become toxic. So you're going to use this for autoimmune disease and calming that whole system down super quick. It is a very, very good thing to do. Here's a study that I want to talk about here. There was a 207-person study with Thunder God Vine and other drugs that were being used for rheumatoid arthritis, right? So they were doing some clinical trials over here, right? And so uh, the the uh, the 207-person randomized trial participants received methotrexate alone, a standardized Thunder God Vine preparation, 20 milligrams, 3 times daily, right? And then both treatments together, okay? At 24 weeks, the percentage achieving an ACR 50 response, at least 50% improvement, right? This is within months, right? This is within, just under 6 months, right? Somewhere around there, 6 months, right? Within 6 months, they are um, they're experiencing a 50% reduction in all their symptoms, right? Uh, Methotrexate alone, 46%. Thunder God Vine alone, 55%. So that the Thunder God alone outdid the best drug for this, right? Just this herb outdid the best drug for this in this blind study, this double blind randomized trial, right? So this is one of those instances, and there's so many of these out there, where the herb just simply does better, even under critical scientific method, right? So in the combination thereof of the two, 76% um, achieve 50% reduction at minimum, right? So a lot of those probably received a lot better. But this just goes to show that the herbs always do better. Now, the combination of this and of the herb and the drug in this instance did better. That's not always the case, um, but in this instance, it is. Um, Now, I would rather just develop a strategy with the herb. The herb's going to do better than the drug. I might as well take the herb and then develop a strategy around that rather than take the drug and have potential side effects, right? So super, super cool. I wanted to share that with you guys. There's uh, other proposed uses for Thunder God Vine, right? Kidney diseases, nephrotic syndrome, uh, let's see, psoriasis, lupus, Crohn's disease. So a lot of eczema, a lot of immune mediated conditions, right? Um, so Thunder God Vine is it's super cool, right? Not meant to be taken long term. This is meant to be used as a strategy, short term, calm the system, introduce your strategy, and you are on a really good path, right? This is definitely it can be very toxic at high amounts. So you just want to use it short term, get yourself back on track, right? But rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, lupus, Crohn's disease, I like to. I've used it for MS as well, certain MS conditions. I've seen other factors in MS where it probably wouldn't be as effective, right? And so, yeah, super good stuff. Thunder God Vine. I'm telling you, I've been talking about it for a while. It is a pretty cool herb, but you got to be cautious with it, right? You can look it up, you can buy it. I don't have it on my store. Um, I wish I did, but I haven't found a good wholesale source. So if you want it, look it up. It's hot. It's difficult not to remember. Thunder God Vine. I mean, it sounds like something out of a movie, right? So let's move on to the next herbs. While I suck this tea down. Turmeric. We love turmeric for autoimmune conditions. We love turmeric for everything, right? Um, Particularly in the form of curcumin extract. We've talked about this a few times. Um, it works on multiple inflammatory pathways simultaneously. It inhibits the NF-xB, which controls the expression of many inflammatory genes, right? It reduces the cytokines such as the TNF alpha and interleukin 1. It also affects the cyclooxygenase and the lipooxygenase, so the COX and the LOX pathways. Making it a broad spectrum anti-inflammatory, right? So, clinical trials in rheumatoid arthritis have shown reductions in pain, swelling, and markers of inflammation. Typical dose is around 1,000 milligrams of a standard humanoid extract twice daily. You take a lot of it, but it's better absorbed with the black pepper, right? So, um, turmeric's awesome. It's awesome for every condition, pretty much. Let me get all y'all in here. Um, let's see. We've gotta get back over here to my big screen. There y'all are. Um, gotcha. Sorry, I'm getting all y'all in here. All right, for the drawing. All right, um, so uh, turmeric, really awesome, right? It's awesome for many things. I have a 30-to-1 extract that I sell on the website, which also has boswellic acid, also has a moringa. There's a lot of really good stuff for anti-inflammatory conditions all around. It's also basically a multivitamin because you're getting every mineral you need from it. Has everything that you need in it. It's really good stuff. I take that one on a daily basis. That one's really good. Let's see. Devil's Claw. So Devil's Claw is known for its analgesic and anti-inflammatory effects. So it helps reduce joint pain and improve mobility by influencing inflammatory mediators and possibly modulating pain receptor or pain perception pathways, right? So it's really good for chronic joint conditions. It has been shown to reduce pain scores in individuals with inflammatory arthritis. Now, just so you guys know, arthritis is like the really the only like real disease, right? So, and what I mean by that is um, if you go to any indigenous people on the earth that are still living indigenous today, and there's still some out there, um, and there have been that have been introduced to Western society over the last 50 to 100 years. We've slowly infiltrated these indigenous societies, right? But through those studies of those indigenous societies, we've come to realize that they don't have all the disease that we have, right? So they don't have cardiovascular diseases. Heart attack is not an issue. Um, they don't have cancer, right? Cancer is not a thing. They don't have um, uh, really autoimmune disease at all, right? So they don't have um, diabetes, right? So they don't have any of those issues that we have, right? So that makes you think, okay, why, right? Why can they live just fine? We can't, right? And some will blame genetics and all that stuff, and it's like, well, no, can't do that because they have basically the same genetics we have. We just express ours differently, right? And um, so it doesn't really come down to genetics, right? We're almost exactly the same genetically. Um, so you have to realize that it's dietary, right? But the only real disease that they experience in old age for them, a normal old age is past 100, right? They live past 100 on an average basis if they didn't get killed from something like a lion or something, right? So from old age, if they die of old age, they normally live past 100, and they're still walking around, they're still doing stuff, jumping around, all sorts of stuff, right? Um, Now, the only thing that they experience is some arthritic pain, not rheumatoid arthritis, but some arthritic pain. So it's the only real disease that I would say that we actually get if we were doing everything right, right? In every circumstance, if we were doing everything perfect for our body or as naturally as possible as God intended, we would really only experience some arthritic pain. And I would assume that's from oxalate buildup over time, even with optimal detox pathways and stuff that you get from eating wild food and everything. Wild food, wild plants and stuff still have oxalates in it. So I would assume that buildup in joints and stuff over time will cause some inflammation. But it's like when you're 100 years old, that's reasonable. And so when you look at that, you have to ask yourself, why are we so disease ridden? Every other person has cancer, or I mean, yeah, 50% of people um, that you know today will have cancer at some point in their lifetime, um, and so it's pretty wild, right? And it's like every other person, literally, and that's just cancer. Then you have heart problems, cardiovascular problems, you have musculatory problems, immune modulating problems. You have all these different hormone disruptor problems. Like you have all these different diseases that affect all these different systems, and it's like everybody has a disease now. It's like a common thing, right? It's hard to talk to somebody in this world and them not be on some sort of medication. That's not normal, right? So um, I'm pretty sure that God didn't create us with a prescription deficiency, right? And so um, for everybody to be taking one is kind of it's mind blowing, right? So just throwing all that out there, we got a little bit sidetracked. We'll get through these herbs. I told you we were going to get sidetracked today a little bit, but ginger, ginger's awesome. We talked about ginger a few times. Um, provides dual inhibition of the COX1 and COX2 and the LOX pathways. So reducing the production of prostaglandins and leukotrienes, right? So this makes it particularly effective for joint protection and inflammation control. In addition, ginger supports circulation and digestion, and it can indirectly benefit both joint health and cardiovascular health, and improving nutrient delivery. Right, so reducing systemic inflammation. I got a fly here. Stinging nettle. Stinging nettle leaf has anti-inflammatory effects. We talked about this one as well a little bit. It has anti-inflammatory effects, and it helps reduce cytokine activity. It can lower levels of inflammatory mediators involved in rheumatoid arthritis and support overall immune balance. Right, so nettle has also been studied in topical applications, right, where direct contact with the skin may help reduce joint pain and stiffness, and that's with the actual needles, right? And possibly through the local effects of nerve signaling and inflammation. I've seen those treatments before. It looks pretty rough, and it hurts from what I've heard. I've walked through stinging nettles. I've gotten stung by it plenty of times. Never had a stinging nettle treatment where they just slap it all on you and it just turn red. It looks pretty rough. I know how much it stings, so you just slapping yourself with it. That's got to be rough. But you can see the inflammatory response that it invokes, and so maybe localizing the immune system to that particular area can be healing. I'm not sure. I've never really looked into that, so I can see where it could benefit, right? So white willow bark. Some of you have heard of white willow bark. Some of you might not have, but it contains silicin, right? It's silicalates, right? Salicylates. I think the C sounds like an S. Salicylates, right? I say silic acid because that's what it is. But they are compounds similar to those found in aspirin, right? So this is what aspirin copied, right? So people used to take white willow bark for headaches, for joint pain, for those sort of things. But they mimicked the molecule, right? Isolated it, mimicked it synthetically from oil, right? The Rothschilds wanted to, produce something to make them some money, so they synthetically made aspirin, and that's what that's the effects that we get from white willow bark. Very similar, right? So it provides analgesic effects and helps reduce pain and inflammation. But unlike synthetic aspirin, it tends to be gentler on the gastrointestinal system. So this is really important, right? Because a lot of people have issues taking aspirin over time. It ruins your gut. It ruins your gut. It ruins your gut. Okay? They never told people about those side effects until they started really happening to people. But it will ruin your gut. I suggest not taking those things. But take white willow bark instead if you really need it. If you headaches are a thing that pop up for you and you can't deal with the pain, take white willow bark, right? I just went through a very difficult headache that lasted about 4 days because I got extremely dehydrated. I'm on the back end of it now. I got extremely dehydrated Friday, and just yesterday really overcame it. It's really difficult. But I got so dehydrated. I mean, it was really bad. I couldn't do it. But I didn't take anything for pain like aspirin or Advil or anything like that. I dealt with it herbally, right? And lots of salt, lots of water, salt, right? And I made it through it. But that was horrible experience, and I will be better prepared next time. I was basically locked in a hot box all day with no water until about 3 o'clock that day, and then I finally was able to get some water. But by that time, I was in pretty bad shape. So, anyways, um, moving on, and that significantly drops your immune system. When you get dehydrated, your immune system goes to crap. Just so you know. So don't do that. Hydration is extremely important, especially in this heat. But it's also very important in the winter. You just don't notice that you're getting dehydrated. So always keep some hot tea or some good salted water with you. So together, right, these herbs target multiple aspects of rheumatoid arthritis. Boswellia and ginger influence key inflammatory enzyme pathways. Turmeric modulates cytokine signaling at the genetic level. And then devil's claw and white willow bark address pain. Nettle supports immune balance, and thunder god vine provides a strong immune modulation when needed. Right. This is a multi-target approach specifically for RA, for rheumatoid arthritis. Some of these things are also used in other conditions because autoimmune disease is very similar, just different targets, right? This multi-target approach reduces inflammation, protects joint structures, and improves overall function. We got a little bit more to go through, and then we'll be done. The autoimmune protocol, right? So I've talked a little bit about this diet-wise, right? So this is the concept of the week. The autoimmune protocol, or AIP diet, is a structured dietary approach designed to reduce inflammation, calm immune activation, and support gut healing, right? I call it it's an autoimmune diet, basically. In rheumatoid arthritis, where joint inflammation is driven by immune dysregulation, this autoimmune protocol helps remove dietary triggers and create more stable internal environment. We talked a little bit about this. You want to go through that elimination phase, right? Where you eliminate foods that most likely trigger immune reactions. We talked a little bit about this, so I'm going to go through it quick. And we talked a lot about this, actually, so I'm going to go through it quick. Gluten, dairy, grains, legumes, eggs, nuts, seeds, nightshades, processed foods, refined sugars, alcohol, and industrial seed oils. These foods are removed because they can cause irritation, intestinal permeability. In arthritis or in rheumatoid arthritis, reducing these inputs helps lower systemic inflammation and can decrease joint pain and stiffness, right? So getting on that really clean, good diet is really important. And consistently, right? Consistency is the key. Tell people this. I don't think they know how important that is. It's okay to eat healthy once in a while. That's great, but it doesn't really do anything for you. You might as well just eat like crap all the time. Because if you don't have any consistency, it's not going to do anything, right? Just eating one good meal a week, it really is pointless. So you may feel like you're doing something, but it's honestly pointless. So if these foods are removed, because they can contribute to the gut irritation and all the stuff, right? So we've got to get the gut right. The diet then focuses on nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory foods, right? High-quality proteins, fresh meat, fish, vegetables, not including the ones that can cause issues like tomatoes, nightshades, all that good stuff. Fruits in moderation. And healthy fats, right? Such as olive oil, coconut oil, animal fats from clean sources. That's what you want to focus on. Bone broth is awesome for healing your gut lining. We've gone over that the last few weeks, so if you missed that, go back and watch it. And then after a period of 30 to 60 days, you gradually reintroduce one thing at a time. Not the bad stuff, just the stuff that may or may not be as bad, like eggs, right? They're really, really great. Just sometimes when you that's not right, they don't work well, right? So, but the goal is not permanent restriction here, but personalization, understanding which foods heal you and which foods contribute to your inflammation. Okay, that is what is important here. So, movement is also a necessary and essential part in managing rheumatoid arthritis. You have to move a little bit, here and there, gentle, careful movement gets fluid moving in and out of the joints. High impact or overly intense exercise can worsen it, right? So, especially during active flares. But gentle movement helps that joint mobility, reduce the stiffness, and support the circulation in that area, right? So I like Tai Chi specifically for this condition. It's fantastic. If you can do a type of yoga, great. If you can't, there's different stretching that you can do. Stretching is key. Tai Chi is key. Tai Chi is very fluid, gentle movements that help get all those joints exactly the type of movement that they need. It's very, very important for a joint inflammation condition, right? Um, so these forms of movement improve flexibility, strengthen supporting muscles, and help maintain a range of motion, which is extremely important. A lot of people lose that, right? Um, yeah, a lot of people should be really upset when they lose range of motion in their joints and stuff. That should be like a defining factor that says, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I've got to get moving again, right? Um, that should be like an endpoint of not doing the right things, because that's a very steep decline. Once you start to lose that range of motion, your whole body's stiffening up, right? You should be able to squat in resting position. You should be able to do those things well up into um, your 80s, 90s, even 100, right? Those are things that you should be able to do. Obviously, certain injuries, certain things can prohibit that, but those are things that normal, everyday people should be able to do, right? And what you do now determines how, and especially in your like 40s, 50s, and even into your 60s, the way that you work your core, all those things determines how you will stand for the next 15 years after that, right? 15 to 20 years. So you got to do it now. There's no time to waste. Um, Consistency is more important than intensity. Small, regular sessions and movement support joint preservation and function over time while minimizing additional stress on the body. So, these many different approaches are strategy. They're meant to be used as a strategy, not one size fits all, not take this one or not do this one thing. It's all meant to work together cohesively for rheumatoid arthritis. Any questions? I know that was a long one today, but I wanted to take a couple side notes from the studies and different things that I've been researching. Pretty cool stuff. If you missed it, I think everybody got in here for the study, but
Hey,
that was really fun.
I just want to say that on the note of Tai Chi, because I have arthritis in my knees and
Yeah,
everything, and I've had the full knee replacement, and I have to have another knee replacement, and especially in this humidity weather and everything, I hurt. It's hard to move sometimes, but I do Tai Chi every night before I go to bed, and sometimes it's just the breathing, sometimes it's got some of the but it's just 9 to 12 minutes, but it
yeah,
makes a huge difference in my resting, and it makes a huge difference in my movement the next day. And
yeah,
whether I'm hurting or not, I still do it, and it really does help. And it also, not only that, it helps lower your blood pressure
yeah.
because it helps with breathing techniques.
That's right. Yeah, um, yeah. It really teaches breathing to stimulate your vagus nerve. That's what you're doing during Tai Chi. So it's really calming your entire system down. It's really good. You get into a meditative state when you do it.
Yeah, I use the Yoga Go app, so it has other things on there too.
Yeah, they got all those resources now that you can use. I had to look up YouTube videos back in the day. Well, I mean, for some of it, I did learn from one guy that I met that was really cool. He came from China, and he taught me mostly Wing Chun, but he also taught me some Tai Chi and stuff. That he actually went to college for it, which is wild. He went to college for Wing Chun in China, which is wild. But he was in the army with it, and so he taught me Wing Chun and some Tai Chi and Qigong. But I furthered my studies on YouTube University later on. So, but now they got all the cool apps and stuff you can just get.
Yeah, they use the qigong in this app too. So they'll mix the tai chi with the qigong, so that you get movement throughout your body and you get breathing technique throughout your body, and it's really soft on the joints.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. It helps. It helps significantly. Significantly. Any other questions?
I've been doing calisthenics,
Yes.
uh, specifically for my arm
Yeah.
to help with the movement and breaking up the scar tissue.
Yeah.
And it's done really, really well. I mean, of course, I still have my bad days, but I've also noticed a difference in like body weight and figure and like toning and strength because it uses your own body against itself. But the mobility has done really well.
So
I can,
I think it's extremely important to note that movement with strength is really important. Like a lot of these people go to the gym to work out to lift more weights, but they can't move their body very well, right? They can't stretch very well. They can't, a lot of these bodybuilders can't bend over to touch their toes or anything like that. Why? So that's not very useful, right? And it's not very healthy either. You're going to cause yourself a whole lot of problems, including digestive problems, because what you had to do to get there included the intake of a lot of nasty stuff, right? So, and there's some that do really healthy stuff and are really healthy with it and everything. But when you start to get to a certain point where um, your body mass interferes with your mobility as a human, there's something wrong, right? And so it's cool for show and everything like that, but it's not for health at all, right? So we have this idea in America that the bigger I am, and the stronger and everything, the more healthy I am, right? And that's just entirely not true. The better, the more mobile you are, the better you can run. Not just long distance running, but like dash, right? The the quick dashes and the sprinting, right? That's key. Um, Losing your ability to sprint is extremely detrimental to your health, right? Everybody should be able to sprint. If you can't, you should like do your best, right, to get back to that mode of being able to run. Um, but yeah, those things are really really important. Now, obviously, for some people, that's going to take a little while to get there, and that's fine. You work towards that. Um, but mobility with strength is extremely important. Calisthenics is super cool for that. I love calisthenics. It's definitely a part of how I do things. I follow a guy. I forget his name now. He's Russian, but I follow a guy that was just super awesome. He was like special forces of Russia, basically, but he invented something called the Naked Warrior, and it's basically advanced calisthenics, right? But super simple. Two main exercises, right? Push up and squat, right? And with those two exercises, you can do everything that you need to do for mobility wise and strength wise. And most people are like, well, you don't use any weight. And you're like, no, you don't have to, because once you get to the ability to squat fully with two legs, then you go to one leg, right? And if you weigh as much as I do, 185, and you can squat your own body weight at 185 on one leg, that's pretty significant, right? Not everybody can do that. That's a pretty good deal. So you don't have to have weights, right? You just have to have resistance to learning how to use your body weight in that way. And one-arm push-ups, right? You do push-ups enough, you do one-arm push-ups, right? And then you elevate your legs, right? So there's all different ways to get more weight, more resistance, and become extremely strong, but mobile in the same instance. Mobility is key for exercise, right? Any more questions? Oh, Sarah, I didn't see you. I got to get you in. Oh, Sarah's. Is that right? Y'all, I still have not figured out what I'm going to give away. It has been a crazy week. Just going to let y'all know that. Between dehydrating myself and nearly killing myself that way, and just all the busy stuff, we're launching the mobile coffee shop. It's already launched. We got the health inspection done and stuff like that. So we are official. And so, yeah, we will be just a lot going on. So I apologize. I have not come up with what we were going to give away. In fact, I actually did. I forgot. Never mind. I forgot. So we're doing a double this time. It is a double. And we're giving away these two. These are two that I take every day, and we've talked about them before. But they complete each other. They're like an all-in-one everything that you need for your day. But especially for immune issues, but anti-inflammatory. If you have inflammatory issues, super awesome. But this one's the turmeric, ginger, the moringa, the boswellia, all those things that we just talked about, right? In pretty high doses. And then this one is the quercetin, the zinc, the vitamin C, elderberry, all that good stuff, immune system stuff, right? That's super awesome. They go together. That's what we're giving away. I totally forgot. I decided that because we were going to be talking about rheumatoid arthritis, because those are especially really good anti-inflammatories. So that's what we'll be giving away this month. That's in 2 weeks. Yeah, in 2 weeks. So yeah, get ready for that. Get your entries in. You got to join your time to get another entry. But this is some good stuff. You take these. I just take. I don't take it how it's suggested. This one says 4 capsules. This one says 2. I take 2 of this and 2 of this every morning, and then 2 of these at night, basically. So take the right amounts. Just I spread it out, but who knows the difference? So that's it, y'all. If y'all don't have any more questions tonight? We can close out in prayer if you guys are ready to go. All right, let's close out in prayer. Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity for us to come together and just talk about your great creation, Lord. You said that There's nothing more evident for a creator than the creation itself, Lord. And we are just here examining that creation and just seeing you written all over it. We're so thankful for you just intervening into our lives and putting the people in our paths that we need, and just providing the healing that we need in our bodies, Lord. We're just thankful for the grace that you inherently built within our bodies. Lord, continue to bless us and just bring us wisdom and knowledge about these things that you have created, Lord, so that we may help each other heal through these processes, through these things that we're all going through, Lord. And just continue to bring people to us, Lord, so that we can help them see you in everything, Lord, in all of creation. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right, y'all. Get off of here. I will see you next time.